What a weekend. 5 events of combat sports in one weekend.
It's too much. It was almost too much.
It was a lot. It was a lot to handle. I made through the entire UFC Adelaide. I watched the highlights of the Tough finale. That's what they called it.
Tough finale Friday.
And
Bellator Friday. Mm-hmm. Then Bellator in Italy on midday Saturday. And then UFC and boxing at night. It was almost too much, man. Almost too much to follow. If you don't have a phone or access to a computer, it was hard to keep up with everything.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, even just going through all the highlights, because I didn't watch the boxing. I didn't want to pay for it if I'm going to be watching for UFC. Mm-hmm. And just having the highlights accessible, that took me about an hour to catch up and get the backstory and
so much content.
You know, just so much content there. So
good weekend to be a fight fan, but you really had to pick and choose.
Busy time. So let's focus on stuff that
in order.
Let's do an order of just. I think the hierarchy for me is UFC, and then I don't need to talk about Bellator too. I like Bellator, but
I love Bellator, but these two events weren't huge Bellator events. I think they were more like filler events.
And I agree. And
I could almost say the same about the UFC this weekend, both UFC events, but there was a couple fights that really stand out as far as the rankings, title picture, and just finishes
Legacy.
In general. Yeah, definitely.
So, speaking of, so what do you, as far as legacy goes, you know, you have had so many former champions fight and former Brazilian champions fight, one of which was Rafael dos Anjos, RDA.
Yeah, fought Kamaru Usman Friday. Check that fight out. I wanted to pay close attention to that fight because Kamaru Usman is on, I believe, a 9-fight win streak in the welterweight division in the UFC, and I think he's never lost in the UFC, period. So I think that's all 9 of his fights were. His only loss, I think, was real early in his pro career for like a regional promotion. Mm-hmm. And but yeah, he's like knocking on that door as far as number 1 contender. And RDA, his only loss at 170, I believe, was to Colby Covington, who's the number 1 contender, and it was a 5-round interim title fight, and he hung in there, but Colby definitely won. Yeah. And RDA is a veteran, man. He's fought at 55, fought some of the who's who, went up to 70, fought some real tough guys, had some great fights. Looks like a world beater. It's just sometimes he might struggle with the top upper echelon guys,
especially with tough wrestlers. I find because it seems like he does a lot of having his back against the cage against Covington, and it seemed like there was a differential in strength. I don't remember who it was on the Adelaide fight said that there needs to be a 165-pound division.
Definitely.
And they also called out fuck Ben Askren during that post-fight, which I was completely offended by. But the point was to be made that a lot of people are going out from 55 up to 70, and they're like, look, you know, it's where we belong, but 65 is where we really belong, so that we can have 75.
There's just a lot of tweeners. That 15-pound gap is a little too much. You know, some of myself included, we're a little too heavy to cut down to 55. You might be able to make it, but you won't perform your best. Sure. And I never felt at 55 that I performed my best. I always felt like a little less energy, a little less strength, you know. But at 70, the guys some of them are a little too big, a little too strong. Their frames are bigger. So that a lot of guys, you know, myself, Rafael dos Anjos, Donald Cerrone, James Vick, Paul Felder, there's just a list of guys that have Kevin Lee, a bunch of guys say that they would prefer a 65 and 75 division, but you know, Dana White's not budging. I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen in the next couple of years.
Especially if they eliminate the 125-pound division. Then you have an entire division. You don't just get rid of one and have net less divisions. I would think that it'd be a great opportunity to replace 25 with 65.
It's definitely a good idea, not just for the health and safety of the fighters, but also it opens up another weight class for another championship, which is another pay-per-view, and you know how they love doing that. Yeah, more
it's all about the Benjamins.
For sure. But, Dos Anjos just kind of fell short. He was one step behind almost the whole fight. Kamaru Usman, that guy's, I've been saying it for a long time, I think he's a future world champion. I think, you know, I don't know for certain if he could beat Tyron Woodley, but I would love to see Kamaru Usman versus guys like Ben Askren, Colby Covington and Tyron Woodley. I'd love to see those guys all fight and see how it... Because styles make fights, and I feel like Kamaru Usman, even though he hasn't had the best showing in some of his fights, I feel like he has the wrestling, submission defense, and he's really coming along with his striking, working with Henry Hooft at Hard Knocks 365 in Florida. I feel like his stand-up's coming a long way, too. He's got some serious power and athleticism. I think he has a background in like personal fitness and strength and conditioning. He's a strength and conditioning coach, or at least he was, for a lot of fighters, so he's really good in that aspect as well. I mean, I just feel like he's that new breed of guys coming up.
He's super explosive. He's
really well-rounded.
Fills out the weight class of 170. He's huge for 170. I thought he was an 85-pounder when I watched him, but I also think that he, with a lot of the success at 170, has been from a particular style, and I want to think that style is just a grueling brawler. So you look at Colby Covington's style, he's swinging and banging, but his wrestling is clean and high pressure. Tyron Woodley's wrestling defense is one of the best in the UFC history, period. But his wrestling offense, in the same token, is great. And he's got that low center of gravity, that explosive overhand like power. And I think that Ben Askren comes into the game at 170 being a grueling, grinding wrestler, and you see Khabib. So people at that weight class with that style have great success. But Kamaru Usman is someone that is super athletic and explosive, high-level wrestler, fits the bill, but could potentially be just in that. I think he's in the same conversation as the ones I just mentioned. Yeah,
and I don't even think it's just that weight class. I think if you look at every division from top to bottom in the UFC, whether that's the champion or not, the people that primarily dominate the weight class are people with wrestling backgrounds. I mean, I know that firsthand just from my own competition, being in fights. The guys that usually have the most success are the guys with a wrestling background, because they can dictate where the fight goes. If you're a really good wrestler and you're fighting a really good jiu-jitsu guy, you can keep it on the feet. If you're fighting a really good striker, you put them on their back and try and maintain position and don't let them have that space or distance. You know, and even if you fight a good wrestler and you fight a good jiu-jitsu guy, if you can keep them compact and not able to shrimp and move, create space to create scrambles, you know, you can struggle with that as well. So wrestling definitely the best background and foundation to have in mixed martial arts.
And I think that's almost proven with Usman UD over RDA, right? Because RDA is a high-level black belt.
Jiu-jitsu black belt and a
Muay Thai
savage striker,
Yeah.
Real good striker.
I think Usman's pressure, to couple with his athleticism and probably a few years younger than RDA. I think RDA is what?
Oh, yeah, he's definitely younger. Yeah. Usman's that new breed. Yeah.
So, one of the things, Zach, that I think has been a common theme for the UFC, not just highlighted by the Israel Adesanya versus Anderson Silva fight, which is now confirmed, is the concept of torchbearer and passing it. So, you know, we're going to get into it more, but Mark Hunt, you know, sort of the older guy passing the torch down. I forget who it was. Willis, I believe is who it was.
Yeah.
And then you have it's just been happening. And I think that RDA is kind of a torch, you know, former champion, passing the torch to Usman, kind of.
He's not quite over the hill or at the end of his career, but he's probably at his last run. I mean, these next few years is going to be towards the end of his career, whereas Usman, I think, has a lot more to give. I think RDA, he's been in the sport so long, he's definitely not done. He's definitely still very competitive, but this might be his last run at a shot. You know, he might be one of those guys that's kind of like a Jim Miller, who's really good, top 10 maybe, top 15, top 12, but not quite top 3 or 4. He might every now and again get close, but then fall short and slide back down a little bit, which there's no shame in that, man.
Sure.
He's still competitive, he's still winning fights, and he's still getting paid. So it's a give and take. It's definitely hard to watch. I know a lot of fans don't like seeing guys like Anderson Silva fight a guy like Israel Adesanya, like you said, or a guy like Mark Hunt, or a lot of these other guys now taking on the young, hungry lions. But at the end of the day, man, that's the sport we play. It's what we signed up for. There's generations. You have to pass the torch. Boxing's done this from day one. You know, it's just, you got to pass it on. You got to pass the torch and let the new breed take over. You can't have the old dogs all the time. You're going to get guys like Chuck Liddell. Who's trying to see that? Who's trying to see old guys like that continuing to fight almost into their 50s, getting knocked out every fight. I don't want to see that to the legends of sport. I want to see these guys be smart, manage their career, save their money, and get out while they still can. Floyd Mayweather is the guy that's doing it the best.
Yes.
He fought guys that were competitive and towards his skill level for most of his career, and once his body started to diminish and he didn't feel like it was responding that same way, he said, okay, I've gone as far as I can. Now I'm going to start taking off guys and take more of the prize fighter role and fight a little bit more favorable matchups.
Conor McGregor.
and guys that are maybe past their prime and still continue to win, somewhat still continue to grow your legacy, but you're not taking as much damage and you're still collecting the checks to support your family. He definitely did it the A+ way. He got in, made a name for himself, and then took the prize fighting route, and now it's just getting boatloads of cash. Then there's some guys that as soon as they come up short, they kind of see where they're at in their career, then they walk away. Then there's guys that hang around too long, and I'm not going to throw any fighters under the bus, but there's some guys that they're constantly saying that they're one of the best fighters in the world, but every other fight they're getting knocked out or submitted, and it's a shame to see that happen to guys. You kind of got to have. It's about who you surround yourself with,
right.
And can kind of.
You don't want to be surrounded by yes men all the time. You want to be surrounded by
people that you trust.
People that are going to tell you realities.
Most definitely.
So yeah, I think that Usman for sure is on the up. I think RDA. You're right. You make a good point. He's still got that. Not over the hill, but he's got some gas left in the tank, which made a very interesting matchup. I think Usman's gonna be next in line, and RDA he's what ranked now 5, 6 ish.
I'm not sure.
Probably land in the middle of the pack between.
He's a top 10 for sure.
Yeah, top 10 for sure. I would guess 6 after that fight.
Yeah,
but no shame in that for sure. But yeah, that was the big tough finale recap, and then the next day, UFC Adelaide. Adelaide I've never heard of before, but I believe it's in Australia. So good for them. The thing that I like the most about this card, Zach, was that they are doing a great job at the international scene with reaching new audiences and just getting the cream of the crop from other regional MMA promotions.
Just last week they were in China.
Yeah.
They're really pushing that global market, trying to grow the sport.
And the thing that I find so interesting is that these, they're almost regional MMA promotions in Russia and in Australia and in I guess even Asia, even China. That when they have risen and there's a lot more options for promotions there.
Japan,
yeah. But they're coming into the UFC and it's just like wow, they're hitting the ground running. So one of the people that stood out the most to me and was extremely impressive was a guy named Jim Crute versus Paul Craig. So Jim Crute was from the land down under. He's an Aussie. He's 22 years old, and he said he reminded me a lot of Body Bags Pyfer, of Joe Pyfer, and Joe is a 85 pounder or 205?
85. Middleweight, yeah.
Okay. Well, he's a bit more shredded. Crute's like 5'9", 205 pounder, I believe. He's just fucking huge. The Aussie.
Oh, okay.
So 22 years old though, and he's like, yeah, I've been doing this my whole life since I was a young boy. Started training MMA when I was 12, so new breed, good at everything, and just kind of so young and fresh that you can tell he's not carrying around nagging injuries.
Yeah,
and just love watching him fight. And the guy he was against was Paul Craig, and Paul Craig was a super bearded, kind of reminded me of William Wallace from a late Mel Gibson film, but he was Scottish. He was a Scotland guy. I could just see him wearing a kilt. And he's like, yeah, this is about as far away of a fight as I could take unless I had a spaceship. That's what he was talking about. And he took a 30. Yeah, it was like a 30-hour flight. And
jeez.
Man, let me see. There was another one too that took a 30-hour flight. I think he was.
There's always a couple.
There's a couple.
But
that's what happens to the fight in Australia, and UFC's a United States primarily based organization. But Jim Crute basically was like, the whole time he was running him down with combos, just pressure. And then when he got on the mat, like, it was as if Paul Craig was defending a submission the entirety of the fight. So whether that was a head and arm choke where you literally see his veins popping, his face was purple, and like the pressure was just fucking incredible. But head and arm choke is one of those things where you can kind of tough through it if you answer the phone. He did a good job answering the phone.
Yeah.
But other than that, he was on bottom and fighting off Kimuras. Jim Crute did a great job, and I know me personally, trained jiu-jitsu, and I've trained with you a couple times, using Kimura as a sweep. Mm-hmm. He did that a couple of times, but he ended the fight.
Looked pretty slick. I didn't see that fight.
Oh yeah, it was a obvious style of high pressure, just like if in jiu-jitsu you can say swanging and banging, where you just do a muscle man sort of submission attempts. The head and arm, the Kimura, the more of the strong based jiu-jitsu, not like finesse, but put it on him, and in the end extended his undefeated streak to 9-0 with Kimura, and he just looked really well rounded. I'm not saying he's ready for John Jones now.
This is
but this is someone that someday
keep your eye on him.
Keep your eye on him, because he's going to make the division interesting. Because these guys are these taller, lankier, just pop shotting, but super well rounded everything, and he's not the Daniel Cormier style, because Daniel Cormier's wrestling was immaculate and his mental game was great, but he's closer to that kind of, but new breed and more explosive. So keep your eye on him.
Definitely.
But yeah,
and then talking about the trying to push out the old lion and pass the torch. You had Shogun Rua, who I've been watching since.
Dude,
early
high school.
Early high school. I would watch his fights in Pride, Grand Prix, and it was like him and Vanderlei Silva were the two best guys at 205, not in the UFC. Then you had like Chuck, Tito, Randy Couture in the UFC. Like I've been watching him, following his career since way back when.
He knocked out Chuck, didn't he?
Yeah, that was at the end of Chuck's career.
In like 2008.
Around then, 8, 9, somewhere around there. Yeah, 7, 8, 9. But it was years later. But I mean, I remember seeing him knock out Alistair Overeem twice actually in Pride. Back when Alistair horse meat and when Alistair was at 205. But yeah, he's been in the game a long time. He has a lot of miles on him, and the crazy thing is, Shogun's not even that old. He's in his, I think, mid-30s. But in
37.
But in fight years, man, that dude's like 95.
He's got like dog years on him.
Dude, he has so many miles on him. I feel bad for the guy, because like he had those 2 wars with Dan Henderson. Those fights alone,
oh my god,
are just miles upon miles. But then all his fights in Pride, pre-USADA UFC, he had a war with Forrest Griffin in his debut. I mean, the dude's got miles.
He must have started being a professional fighter at what, late teens?
Well, I've actually seen videos. There's videos of him when he was training in Brazil at Shootbox. There's videos where he would have fights with his friends, like in a house, like in like the living room, and it was just filled with Brazilians. They had boxing gloves, no mouthpiece, no gear, and they're just knocking each other out. Like, I've seen him get knocked out in these like living room boxing matches when he was a young teenager. They're on YouTube or somewhere on the internet. But needless to say, yeah, Shogun's an old dog. They were looking to have him pass the torch to a
Tyson
guy
Pedro
from Australia in his backyard. I believe it was the co-main event. And man, whenever I count Shogun out, man, he kind of reminds me of Andrei Arlovski. He surprises you.
Yes. And the what's going on here? Whoa, I'm getting a little excited about fucking Shogun. The other interesting thing about who Tyson Pedro was all about, I didn't know him too well. I think I saw a couple fights. And
I've seen a couple fights, seen him on podcasts. He was a betting
favorite of minus 500. That is crazy.
There's a lot of hype behind him.
That means that people in Vegas were perhaps losing money on this fight. Good. I had a buddy over. We both looked at each other and said, Shogun's going to win. And
I didn't think Shogun was going to win. I thought Shogun was going to get slept in the first round. And that
was my fandom speaking, more so than me being completely educated on who Tyson Pedro was all about. I know him a little bit, but
dude, Shogun dropped him hard in the third round. TKO, KO, just dropped him, pounded him out with some vicious ground and pound. Fight stopped. Props to Shogun, man. He's a legend. He's still doing a damn thing.
He's still doing it.
Man, he's still.
It was like the glory days or the Pride days, right?
Pride days, yeah.
The glorious Pride days, not glory kickboxing.
I don't know who you put Shogun with next. It's at 205. I'd have to look at the rankings. He's coming off that nasty KO loss to Anthony Smith, and then just beat Tyson Pedro. So do you give him another up and coming guy? Do you give him a legend?
I would give him Anderson Silva if he didn't have to go against Israel. I think that would have been great.
Have Anderson come up to 205?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
He
He's
came
done
up
it before.
because he came up against Cormier, and that was a snooze fest. But this one would not be a snooze fest. This would be a great battle. But again,
yeah, I don't know.
After the Israel fight, I think Anderson's going to maybe not hang up the gloves, but I would love to see that legacy fight. And if you didn't have Israel right now, I think the timing would have been good. So
yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's next for
and
Shogun.
Tyson Pedro, I don't know, man. He's going to make another.
And again, Pedro's teammate was in the main event. Tai Tuivasa, another Australian.
Yeah.
His teammate, a guy that they're really pushing. I think he just beat Andre Arlovski. I'm not sure who else he beat since then.
He was undefeated.
Yeah. Takes on Junior Dos Santos, former world champion, guy that's had his last couple fights are win-loss, win-loss.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is his first win streak since, I could be very wrong, but I want to say his first win streak since 2014, Junior Dos Santos. Like, he's been every other fight.
Yeah.
Or double loss, I think, since, I want to say 2014.
But he's beaten some of the GOATs.
Yeah, he just came up short, lost by KO to Overeem, lost by KO to Stipe. And, he's just come up on hard times. But then he'll win a fight, lose a fight, win a fight, lose a fight. So he's kind of at that back nine of his career. People are starting to count him out. Mm-hmm. He still has that, heavyweights never lose that power, but they start to lose that jaw. They start to...
And he's big. He was 252. Didn't he weigh in?
JDS?
Yeah.
Wow, he's usually in the 240s, 230s.
Yeah,
he's usually
I thought
lighter.
235.
Yeah, he's usually right in between 35
and it's in and out. His footwork and his perimeter, closing the distance usually looks amazing.
So basically, they were trying to push Tuivasa, Tai Tuivasa, into being the next upper contender.
Here's a torch. Let me pass that.
Yeah, basically. And JDS said, "Nah, I'm gonna hold on to this."
Yeah.
Clang and
clanging and banging. Well, I think that Tuivasa was doing great until he did he dropped his hands, invited him in,
dude,
and then he got slobbered.
You never want to invite JDS to throw one of those punches, man. He's got some bricks.
Unless you're and Anderson Silva was the king of head movement and doing this whole thing, but when he invited it, that's when he got slapped.
Yeah, man.
And I'm just never going to welcome a punch in my face. I'll just be honest. It doesn't feel great.
Just tell my guys, try not to showboat, because when you showboat, the guy's going to get desperate, and sometimes desperate, when you swing desperately, and it's a Hail Mary. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I always try to tell our guys, stay technically sound, stay composed, and just, it's great. I love sitting there and slipping and missing, but don't smile, laugh.
But don't put your hands down.
I remember one of our guys, Christian Carr, was fighting amateur kickboxing fight for the USKA in Allentown, and he threw a teep, like he threw a front kick, and his opponent caught it and then cocked his hand back like he was going to swing, and Christian just put both his hands down and just sticks his chin out, and the opponent swings, and Christian pulls back, misses the punch, and then just stares right at the guy while he's still sitting on one leg. Oh man, it was hilarious, man. I'm in the corner and I'm trying not to, yell at him. What are you doing? And I'm trying to just stay focused and coach. But man, I can't lie, I couldn't stop laughing. I think I was holding my face. I was holding my stomach. Me and old man Randy were just dead. And he's like, "What a turd, man! What is he doing?" And I'm just like, "Dude, the kid's he's feeling himself right now. He's on another level." That was a shout out to Christian Carr. That was I almost wore a Christian Carr T-shirt today, but
I need to get one of those.
I had to. I think it's in the laundry. But, so JDS beats Tai Tuivasa, shows the heavyweight division he's still here. Then, I don't know if it was the post-fight interview in the cage or backstage, but he said that he wants a rematch with Overeem. And I think that's a good fight. Now, was that
Tuivasa? Or was that...
JDS.
JDS, okay.
Because JDS won.
Yeah.
Overeem and Junior Dos Santos fought a few years ago, and Overeem knocked him out, I think, in the 4th or 3rd round with a left hook. And it was a competitive fight up until that point. It was kind of one of those fights where they kept feeling each other out. There wasn't a ton of big shots thrown because heavyweight, it's small margin of error. And they were really just trying to get each other's timing, and Overeem looped a hook and just flatlined. It was actually
ground and pound.
I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. I still really want to see Overeem and Derek Lewis. That's who Overeem called out, and we've never seen that fight yet. So
that'd be great. Yeah.
I would love to see Derek Lewis fight either Overeem or JDS Overeem. I don't care. Any of those way you want to mix those three, I think it's a good fight. for the fans. They're all stand-up guys. They all look
Totally
good.
agree.
And any one of them could stop the other.
The other.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, man. Well, there's a lot of interesting fights to be made after this event, but I will say that although we didn't talk about every single fight on the Adelaide card,
There's too many to talk about.
there's too many, but it was the best fight from top fight card from the beginning to the end.
Adelaide?
For a free event. My God, some of these people I didn't hear of, but I'm like, how could I not have heard of you? Oh, that's right, you're on the other side of the world and you're new to the UFC. I'm just ignorant of your regional promotion.
That's what's great
But
about
it was amazing. These
the
people were
UFC.
so high level.
Yeah, the UFC spreading their roots and going around. That's what's great about that, because now we're going to start seeing all these different fighters from across the globe. I think it's awesome, man. It's a good time to be a fan. You know, you might end up seeing more events. Some days, some weekends, it could be a little chaotic because there's so many shows on.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to hear me complain about there being too much fights available. And there was a time period where there was like a month before you saw another live event.
Yeah.
Like years and years ago. And oh my God, man, it was.
I remember.
Those months were brutal, you know.
Well, December is going to be a great month for viewers. There's a lot coming up.
It's going to be nuts.
It's going to be fucking crazy. Next weekend, December 8th, is Valentina Shevchenko versus JJ as the co-main. But who's the main? Refresh me.
That's next week?
Isn't it?
I
December
have to
8th?
double check. I have Lateesha Mohl fighting next week, so I don't know what. Right now, I'm just focused on coaching her. She's kickboxing USK next week, so as far as watching fights, I'm not 100% sure, because I know I'm not gonna, if I'm not going to be in town that day, I try not to think about it too much because it bums me out that I'm going to miss the events. So, but I know that fight's coming up. I want to say it's not that weekend though. I think it's the following, but I could be wrong. I'd have to double check.
But they have UFCs the 8th, the 15th, and I think the 29th.
UFC, Bellator, Art of War.
Loaded
These
for
next
December.
couple months, man, it's so much.
Art of War has a December card?
No, but I'm saying over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
They have 2 in February. I think they're doing like 2 in a row.
God,
So yeah, it's a good time to be a fight fan
for sure.
for the regional scene and for the global scene.
Cool. All right, so we're back, and let's talk a little bit about the other side of the combat sport spectrum this weekend. It was a huge weekend in the world of boxing, and I'll admit that I am a casual fan of boxing. I like it. I think that it does a great job since over 100 years ago of bringing an audience and bringing combat sports to the Western world. But, however, I would say you're probably a much bigger boxing fan. So tell me a little bit about Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder and how that went. I'll tell you that I've heard their names. I've never seen them fight. Mm-hmm. So I watched the highlights.
I followed both guys. I'm not a die-hard boxing fan as much as a couple of my friends are. But a lot of the podcasts that I listen to and some of my friends, like I said, they're big boxing fans, so I get a little bit more intel from them. I know when there's fights to tune into, not just the mainstream ones. I'm not as diehard into boxing. I'm definitely more of an MMA fan by far. But this fight definitely was, there's the 3 best heavyweight boxers in the world: Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury has just had 2 warm-up fights. He had a long layoff. Deontay Wilder's been killing it in America. He's the American WBC World Heavyweight Champion. Tyson Fury was the champion but hasn't defended his title, was on a hiatus, so he's no longer the champion, but still people recognize him as the world champion. And then Anthony Joshua over in, I believe, England is the world champion. He's kind of somewhat out the picture, so it was all about Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder to see who's the best out of those 2. And it was a pick'em fight. Leading up to the fight, I said that if it stops before the 7th or 8th round, that Wilder might catch him. But if it goes the distance, or if it happens in maybe 8 or gets stopped later, that it would be Fury winning. Fury's, even though he's a heavyweight, he doesn't fight like a heavyweight. He's very smooth, very fast. He likes to finesse and box. He's huge on defense. He has some of the best head movement. The best head movement, in my opinion, in heavyweight, but in some of the best head movement just in boxing in general.
Wow.
He doesn't just get out the way of shots. He's like so scientific with it, and he'll get out just enough that it just skims past you and then he'll come back and counter. And he was making Wilder miss all night. I mean, it was a boxing clinic from the first round to basically the 12th round. In my opinion, he won every single round of the fight minus the 2 rounds that he got dropped.
So 10-2?
Yeah. So Wilder was throwing Hail Marys the entire fight. He's not a technical boxer. He's a puncher. He's 39-0 with 38 KOs. He's an amazing puncher, but he's not a technical boxer.
Mm-hmm.
Fury has a bunch of knockouts, but he's not necessarily a knockout artist. He's more of a boxer. He's more of a tactician.
I saw a podcast that talked about him preparing for Klitschko, and he went into Klitschko's backyard and outboxed him and beat him unanimously on the judges' scorecard, right, to a decision.
Yeah.
And isn't that kind of...
It's hard to do.
Kind of a crazy concept?
Yes, and he did that last night as well. Just picked Wilder apart. I'm a Deontay Wilder fan. I enjoy watching him fight. Mm-hmm. I enjoy watching Tyson Fury fight more because I appreciate good technique and defense a little bit more so than just raw power and athleticism, because you can improve your power, you can improve your athleticism, but you're not necessarily going to turn yourself into an athlete.
It's a sweet science.
Exactly. But what Fury did, I mean, that's skill. That's not... He wasn't born with that type of technique. He was just born with work ethic and that mentality that devoted his whole life into being the best version of himself that he could be as a boxer.
Well, I'm going to challenge that statement because the Joe Rogan podcast episode I saw with Tyson Fury sort of predicated why his post-fight speech was the way it was, speaking towards if you have mental health issues, if you have problems with addiction or depression or anything like that. Like, he said he got up in the 12th round from being knocked down and sort of implored everyone else like going through that similar thing. And I'm like, you're the heavyweight champion.
Yeah,
boxing.
He's a unique individual.
Like, what do you mean? And it sort of gave me the background knowledge to really appreciate the fight, which was, after he beat Klitschko, he said that was like the worst period of time of his life. Like, he just did cocaine and drank whiskey up to 400 pounds.
400 pounds.
And he's 6'9", and he's just like, he basically told the story how he was just about as suicidal as you could get, like on the basically the cusp of life. He had either a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or some sports car, took it 190 miles an hour and was going to run into a wall and crush himself like a can.
Yeah.
And then he said a voice in his head says, "No, don't do that. You have kids." And he pulled over and just like wept. And then he went home after a Halloween party where he was dressed as a skeleton, a 400-pound skeleton.
Yeah, it's a big skeleton.
And he said he just went up to his room and just prayed to God and wept and cried so much that his shirt was just completely soaked. And he said the next day, he said soberly that he was going to be the heavyweight champion again and make a run. And you're like, you look at it like, holy shit, that wasn't too long ago. I think that was the end of 20.
Yeah,
that was 2 years ago.
He lost all that weight in like 1 year. Went from over 400 pounds to like 260 or 265, something like that. Yeah, man, the dude just is mental strength and just his whole approach to life and fighting in general is just on another level. Very mentally strong guy. Even though there was a time period where he was very mentally weak, he was able to turn that around. And I admire the guy. I think he's not just an amazing boxer, but he's just a real good human being, and it's a guy that people should look up to. I definitely think I take a lot away from him, and I look up to Tyson Fury for sure. He definitely is could be a role model. And Deontay Wilder, nothing against him. He's got a huge family.
Sure.
He's the heavyweight champion of the world, and he's a role model to a lot of kids too.
Sure.
I think I'm a big fan of both guys, but I felt that it was a pick-em 50-50 fight. I thought if it ended before the 8th, that it was going to be Wilder. If it went the distance or it was a late stoppage, that it would be Fury. I want to say that right around that point, the 7th or 8th round is when Fury got dropped the first time, got back up, and I believe he won the rest of the round, but it didn't really matter because it was still a knockdown. And then in the 12th, got dropped early in the 12th, and I thought it was fight over. I mean, he was flat on his back, looked like he was KO'd, and somehow it just shot up.
And one of the people in Deontay Wilder's corner after the fight, I watched this video, man, it was a great video, I'll have to send it to you. He basically said Tyson Fury, he ain't of this world, man. He's not a material human being. He's from the spirit world. That's the only way that he got his soul back in his body and got up. He's like, he sold out his body and came back. He went on a journey.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it literally
no
looked
shit.
Like he woke up. Like,
it literally looked like he was a man possessed by some otherworldly spiritual shit going on.
He was unconscious on the ground. There was no way he looked like the type of knockout where you leave on a stretcher. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you just see him like wake up and he's like, oh, I'm still in this fight. Boom, shoots back to his feet, stands up, finishes the round, and I believe he won the rest of the round. Doesn't matter, like I said, because it was
sure.
So
how would you have scored the fight?
10 rounds to 2 would have gave the decision to Fury, hands down. I was watching a fight with a couple buddies, and when they said it was a split decision, we all couldn't believe it. And then when they said it was a draw, one judge Fury, one judge Wilder, the last judge was a draw, I was like, man, boxing, you got me again. You got me 2 damn times with Canelo and Triple G. I said I would never watch boxing again unless it's Floyd Mayweather, because I know Mayweather's going to win no matter how the fight goes, because he always wins. So I was like, boxing, you're not getting my money again. And God damn it, they got me. They got me again, man. I'm a sucker.
They did it again.
I'm a damn sucker. But yeah, man, Tyson Fury, they were talking about a rematch. The I forget the guy's name that was doing the post-fight interview. All he wanted to hear was about a rematch. You know, Tyson Fury was trying to talk about, you know, the fight, talk about, you know, what he's overcome and all that. And every question out the guy's mouth, okay, yeah, but what about the rematch? And he's just like, listen, man, I just got done a 12-round fight with one of the best heavyweights in the world. You want a rematch? Yeah, we'll do the rematch. But I need to spend the holidays with my family. Christmas is coming up. I'm trying to relax. Then we'll talk about a rematch. Mm-hmm. And Wilder kind of said the same thing. You know, we could do it again, but at the same time, you know, we're gonna take a break.
It's time to watch Die Hard. It's Christmas.
Most def.
Yeah.
Die Hard and Home Alone. They're my 2 go-tos on Christmas time. What are yours?
I'll admit I've never seen Die Hard, but I need to.
Oh Christ.
My favorite is.
What are your top 3 favorite Christmas movies?
All right, Bad Santa 1 is number 1. Bad Santa 2 is number 2. And number 3 is
An Alcoholic Santa. Those are your favorite Christmas movies. You know what, man? That doesn't surprise me at all.
So Bad Santa 1 and 2 are up in 2. And number 3, I don't even know what it's called, but it has the Heat Miser and the Freeze Miser. And it's like one of these old school cartoony Christmas movies. And I just think it's just trippy, man. I can't believe the cartoons back in the day used to be something else. I couldn't even tell you what the hell it's called.
Oh, man, you're funny.
So this is the villains of Christmas.
Yeah.
It's like the Grinch, but like way cheesier. I like the Grinch too. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I guess 3
Did you see the
three
new...
would be. Yeah, I saw it the other day.
Yeah.
I saw it on Friday. It was good.
Like, it's a good story. It's like, hey, this guy only really likes his dog.
I like.
Doesn't really like humans too much, but then it kind of grows on him because you're like, oh, it's not all about me. It's about other people, and maybe robbing this town blind of all their Christmas gifts I could go about this a better way. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like some Tyson Fury shit. Sort of just finding himself again and being a good person, overcoming
the Grinch and Tyson Fury,
overcoming mental illness to being a good person, and just, you know, I like the Grinch too. But yeah, I'll admit that this is really the only Christmas tree I have in my house right now. I probably should decorate.
It's real, right?
Look at that green thumb I got. Oh, it might die now. It's fake. So yeah. Speaking of the Christmas spirit, what do you think about rumors coming up?
This was a juicy week, actually. I don't know if you saw, Sage Northcutt is no longer with the UFC. He signed another former UFC fighter, signed with one championship out in Asia. That's huge, man. It's a good fit.
They're going to love him there.
Yeah.
He's basically a Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z.
He's an American superhero fighting in Asia. Yeah. A lot of people are saying online that Sage got cut by the UFC, and that's not true. Sage he finished his contract with the UFC. So there's a certain period where you can go out and, you know, try and pursue something. Exactly. Try and pursue something else, and the UFC can either match that deal or they can let you go. And there was a lot of rumors going around that Sage wasn't going to be in the UFC anyway. After his contract was done, there was his manager's coincidentally Uriah Faber, and Faber was on a couple of podcasts listening to, and he said, he's like, we're not saying this next fight's not going to be in the UFC, but we're talking to some other bigger promotions, and at the end of the day, when you're at a certain point in your career, you're fighting for the money, you're fighting for being able to support and take care of your family. You're not always fighting just to say you're in the UFC. If there's, like Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson, if there's options elsewhere that are better suited for yourself and your family, you should do that. And Sage Northcutt's going to one championship. I think that's awesome. I'm happy for him. Excited to see him fight over there. And, you know, maybe he comes back in a couple years, maybe not. But I'm excited to see Super Sage fight in a one championship.
They're going to love him over there. I think that he's a great athlete.
Yeah,
I think that he got brought into the UFC pretty early. But he's going to be kind of, after his stretch there, I think it's just going to be the right thing for his career. And I'm glad that he's being managed so well, because so often we've seen almost child prodigies be mismanaged and have them off track for their career. I know it's happened before.
Yeah, it's kind of happened.
I mean, it happened to your boy Macaulay Culkin. Like,
oh yeah, from Home
that's
Alone.
a little different, a little different entertainment. But
yeah,
he became a different breed after his mismanagement.
Uh-huh.
Michael Jackson, he was mismanaged as a child. So Sage Northcutt,
don't speak on that.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, speaking of not Michael Jackson, but Sage Northcutt, one of his past opponents, Mickey Gall, is having a little back and forth with Mike Perry online. It's looking like that might be the next fight.
I'm a Mickey Gall fan. I am a big Mickey Gall fan, but
Mickey Gall
Mike Perry's a fucking savage.
Who do you think wins that fight? If it happens, I don't even know if it's going to happen.
I think if Mickey Gall can get to the ground, he'll win.
I think Mickey Gall fucks him up.
You think everywhere?
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to go punch for punch. I think he's going to fight smart.
He has a higher IQ, but Mike Perry's
a junkyard dog. You know, if you try to if you fight his fight, you're going to lose 9 out of 10 times. But if you fight your fight, you beat him 9 out of 10 times because he's, falls into that. Yeah,
he has to fight his fight.
He has to fight one way to win. He doesn't have multiple ways to win. It's shown in his career.
Wanderlei Silva, but
to an extent, yeah.
Not the same.
To an extent, yeah. He's an exciting fighter. I love watch. I don't miss any Mike Perry fight.
Yeah.
But if he does fight Mickey Gall, that'd be awesome. I think Mickey Gall finishes him rear naked choke within 1 round.
I hope so.
Gall's a beast.
That's what I would like to happen. I think it's very likely.
Gall's a beast.
So,
and
what other rumors are there, man? What else you hear?
I don't know when this podcast is going to drop, so I don't know if more info on this will come out. But I saw a tweet or an Instagram post that Conor McGregor's boxing coach, Owen Rowdy, no longer is going to be at SPG Ireland where Conor and all those guys train. I don't know if that means he's opening up his own gym and Conor's going to go there, or if he'll still come there to train with Conor. But I know he's also, like, when I coach a group of people. Mm-hmm. Every night of the week. I coach a class. If people want to work one-on-one with me, that's something separate I do at a different time.
Right.
So I don't know if he's still going to work with Conor separately at a different time, but I know he's not going to be teaching classes at that gym anymore. So I don't know how far we're reading into it or not, but if he's not going to work with Conor, which I doubt, I think he's still going to be working with Conor, just not, if I had to guess, just not coaching classes. He probably made enough money and has enough of name recognition that most likely he's going to open up his own gym that's not under the SPG umbrella and
there's advantages and disadvantages to both, right? Like it depends on what you like, it depends on what your goal is. Like if you want to be, I think one coach that does a great job of doing probably both would be Dwayne Ludwig, right? Because he kind of a similar thing. But
he only coaches TJ. He coaches his class at his school.
Yes,
but he's the only fighter that you'll see him corner. He'll coach a lot of fighters, but he's not their coach.
Right.
Like they're straight and coaching a fight.
But what I guess the point I'm trying to make is he does a good job in balancing the group setting as
well
as the individual.
And I think that's
what. Time.
And I think that's what. Very similar to Dwayne, because Dwayne taught kickboxing at Alpha Male, but then when he got himself to a certain point as far as name recognition, he left and opened up his own gym.
Right.
And then he still trains TJ, but he has his own school. So I think that's what Owen Rowdy's going to do. He's probably going to open up his own striking or martial arts school and then train Conor on the side. If I had to guess, that's the way to do it. You're making money under your own umbrella, doing what you love to do, but you're still also helping, guys that help make your name.
It's something that I feel like a lot of, you're kind of, you coach kickboxing in a group setting. Mm-hmm. You also do some one-on-one, but you answer this question. Is that something that is kind of like the goal? Like, hey, at some certain point, I would love to be able to do that. Would you personally want to do that?
100%. Fighters don't give themselves a plan B. I believe Owen Rowdy used to be a fighter, but Yeah, I can't fight my whole life. You know, I'm dealing with a pretty serious injury right now that's going to keep me on the shelf for quite a decent amount of time. So what do I do to still stay involved with the sport while I'm out with an injury? I coach. Well, I coach anyway because it's what I love to do. But once, let's say, a fighter's fighting career is over, but they still are passionate about the sport, then yeah, they could maybe fall back onto coaching that. So I'm kind of already working on my next step, you know, by running the kickboxing program at Gracie 717. I'm doing that. That way I have something to fall back on when my career is over, my fighting career. But I can still stay involved with the sport because the sport in many ways saved my life. I'm very passionate about this sport. You know, I have my full-time 9 to 5 that I work Monday through Friday that primarily pays all my bills. But then, you know, I also fight and coach. So once my fighting career is done, I can still stay involved with the sport. I have something to fall back on. Maybe years down the road, I can have my own facility, my own school. Yeah, I feel like that's always someone's end goal.
That's awesome.
That's what my coach did. That's what, you know, our coach Damien, our jiu-jitsu coach, you know, he didn't have his own school his whole career. Right. He competed in jiu-jitsu, trained, and then when he got himself to a certain point, he opened up his own school. I think that's not every fighter's dream, but it's most.
But the ones that are the career coaches and the
the lifers.
Like, hey, I'm a lifer.
Yeah, the lifers. That's cool. What Damien knew that as soon as he got to know me. He said, "All right, you're a lifer." Yeah. You know, you can tell. Then there's some guys when their fighting career is done, they don't even want to think about fighting. They just want to move on.
Yeah.
Everybody's different.
But so that's a cool rumor. What about you know, what's we watched together.
Your boy De La Hoya.
Yeah, I am.
The estimated pay-per-view buys before the event, what they were saying was over 200,000.
I heard 250.
Yeah, they were saying they're estimating between 200,000 and 300,000. Well, the pay-per-view results are in, and there's a chance that it is less than 30,000.
So they got 1/10 where there's, you know, hey, they were close. They just had an extra zero. Who can, like, a bad accountant?
That's a lot of money, man.
That's a significant difference.
And what I heard was Chuck and Tito, at least Chuck, because Tito's a little bit closer with De La Hoya, so I can't totally speak on that. But from what I heard was that they're being paid via pay-per-view buys. So like they're getting when you're at a certain level, like even in the UFC or boxing, the main, co-main title fights, they get a percentage of the pay-per-view buys. Like maybe, let's say, hypothetically, you get $1 for every buy. Well, Chuck and Tito, from what I understand, what I heard was that most of their purse was through pay-per-view buys. So maybe they're getting X amount of dollars per pay-per-view buy. So if they did get over 200 pay-per-view buys, these guys are balling. But under 30,000 buys, man, that makes Chuck look in the mirror and even more say, damn, was this shit worth it? Because if you like come back and you get knocked out like that after getting knocked out a bunch of times and you're a legend and it really hurts your legacy, sometimes they could say, well, at least I just got paid a ton of cash. But now at this, with this scenario,
he has to look at it as, if that's the case, Zach, the story he tells himself at the end of the day, looking in the mirror, has to be, you know what, it was about the legacy, it was about the fans, it was about me proving myself that I could do what I set out to do. You can't say it was about the cash, or else you're going to be super depressed.
Yeah.
Shit.
I just feel bad, man. Chuck's a legend. I hope that those numbers aren't right and they're able to rake in a little more, but yeah, Oscar De La Hoya should probably stick to boxing.
Yeah, and not promoting. He's a shitty promoter. And
for MMA, yeah. For MMA, he's a shitty promoter. If your name's not Canelo Alvarez, I would just stay away from Oscar as far as being your promoter.
Probably one of the easiest people to promote, I'd imagine.
Yeah, redheaded Mexican who can box his ass off. Yeah. Pretty good.
So,
but other than that, there's not a whole lot of rumors going on. As far as the regional scene, Art of War is not until February. They announced that they're doing 2 events. So we're still a ways to go, but as we get closer, hopefully we can speak on that a little more. They're going to obviously have their Philly local guys. Hopefully we can get a couple of the 717 guys on that card. I know Christian Carr's trying to get on that card, but we'll see. Not 100% sure. Nothing's set in stone because we're still pretty far out. Next week there's the return of the USKA. They're doing a kickboxing event in Allentown. Gary Grant is now the promoter, not Irv Althouse. He took over USK. We have Lateesha Mohl, who just fought week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
She is a cowgirl, man.
Back on the horse, fighting again.
She a honey badger cowgirl.
She's something.
Jeez.
But she's coming with a 5-round championship, damn near flawless victory. I think she posted the video on social media. When I watched the replay video, it was just as much, if not, it was actually probably more dominating than when I thought about it when I was sitting cage-side corner. She beat the crap out of this girl. Now she's fighting another tough girl from, I want to say that her opponent next week is from New York for the USKA. It's going to be a tough fight. But
is she the main event again for this?
No, I don't believe so. This is a non-title fight because she's the other one was a Virginia promotion. She was the main event main or co-main championship and co-main. And then this week, I'm not sure where exactly she's at on the card, but you know, she gets 1 or 2 wins at USKA, she could be knocked on the door for another title fight for another promotion, which would be awesome.
Good for her. Yeah, actually, you know, doing some no kickboxing classes. You know, training with her.
I've seen you there.
I've been there a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't get tired, man. It seems like she has somewhere between 5 and 7 jobs, but she definitely she's got a gas tank on her. Yeah. Puts in a lot of work outside of class, and really nice and good attitude. But I would imagine that when the bell rings, not nice, not friendly. So
yeah, she's tough.
I would like to see the recap the fight. Best of luck to Lateesha. So that's cool. That's coming up next week. And then Art of War 9 videos are up, and I will be the first person to admit that I feel like I'm a little sad, and the reason I'm sad is because I was commentating at the event. Like I was speaking there. You know, I gave the mic to the Carr brothers.
Yeah, you see them do that in the videos and all that.
You know, and I think I watched your video and I watched Josh's video, and I just realized that, you know, my voice isn't in there.
So supposedly, I don't know the gist of it, but from what I heard was that something was wrong with the commentary, like it didn't record properly.
There's a production flub that happened.
There was something that happened, so what they had to do was redo the commentary, and because it's the promotion, even though that event was in Lancaster, they're based out of Philadelphia.
Right.
So having
the people that live in Philadelphia.
So having the other 2 commentators are from Philly.
Yeah. You
being from Lancaster,
it's just logistically
hard
impossible.
Commute to go up there and redo all of this, watching it again. So but the Art of War 9 videos are up. My last fight that I had in November is up, so you can see the fight. You try and pick out where the injury happened. I did watch it once. Probably not watch it again for a little while, but then again, I could probably watch it when I get home. I don't know. I'm one of those guys. I'm never watching this again, and then I'll,
flip a coin. Head
we'll
to watch it.
Overall, how I feel about the fight was it was fun while it lasted. I scored myself winning the fight. I know exactly where the injury was because I remember the exact moment. Was, I believe, the first and second right hand that I threw in round number 2. The first one, I felt like I pulled a muscle, moved around, threw some kicks, and the second one I threw it, I felt a pop as my shoulder went out, pop as it came back, or my punch went out, came back in, and what that was my shoulder dislocating as the punch came out, and then my tendons all stretched out and strained out. I thought I tore my bicep, but what it was my bicep stretched and strained, and then when I brought the punch back, was my shoulder popping back in the socket. So I'm going to be on the sidelines for quite a while doing a lot of physical therapy. I got 3 MRIs last week at one of my shoulder, my bicep, and my the back of my arm, my lat. And there's no tears, so that's good. I do not need to get operated on, but it's looking anywhere from close to a 6-month recovery. Lots of physical therapy, lots of rest. So I'm going to be doing a lot of leg cardio and ab workouts. Not so much. I
haven't centaur mode.
Yeah,
all lower body.
Yeah, I haven't thrown a punch since the fight. It's killing me teaching class. You know, seeing there, helping you with some moves, and not being able to throw the gloves on. But at the same time, it's good. I need a break, man. I've been training since 2008, fighting since 2010. I have 42 fights. Your boy is a little worn out, so I need to let my body recoup and help the team level up and improve. So my main focus right now is coaching. Up next, we got Lateesha Mohl. Then after that, we'll see who we got at Art of War. Takeover, man, it's coming.
I mean, I'll be watching. I'll be talking about it.
Yeah, we'll be on here. Stocky talk
in a stocky manner.
You know,
I'm not going to stop doing that, and I'll say the one thing I'm glad about is that your vocal cords aren't injured.
Yeah.
From the fight.
We were a little nervous, not necessarily the vocal, but I thought I was going to be sidelined for a bit, but we're good.
Cool. So I think we got a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of rumors to keep chattering about, and a lot more Stocky Talk to keep doing. So as always, guys, thanks for the feedback. I've been getting some love this week, so appreciate that. And I think we're gonna get after it again next week. So take care.